What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Scotty Talks NBA featuring my co host, Zach Noble. You can find him on the X app at Zach Noble. It still feels funny just saying that name. It's just so basic and simple. But nonetheless, you can find Zach Noble on the X app at Zach Noble. You can find myself at Scotty Drowned. We're back with another edition of our positional rankings for the NBA this upcoming season. Today we're doing power forward, so it should make for an interesting conversation. But before we get into that, Zach, I would love to ask you, how is your day, my friend?
I appreciate that. I had a good workout, and I was telling you I got some cold brew that's got me all jazzed up. So taking some PTO this afternoon to get out and beat the lake traffic up north,
Love
and
that.
hopefully have a good Labor Day weekend because we
Oh,
love
that's
Labor Day
awesome.
weekend in Minnesota. It's
Awesome, awesome. So
the
you got
lakes
the
are peaking.
long weekend, right? You got the long weekend heading up to the lake house, man. The weather's beautiful here in Philly today. It's probably the best. Probably the best day of weather since spring. It's just been either rainy or really, really hot. Today it's like the
Good.
perfect mix of cool and warm weather. But no, that sounds like an exciting weekend, man. I've seen some of your pictures from up at the lake, so I know that's going to be a beautiful and good time with the fam. You going out with friends, or is it like a kids weekend?
Just just the family this
Just the
weekend,
family?
and yeah,
Awesome, man.
should be a warm one. College football, so we'll be spending a lot
There
of
we
time in the
go.
bar. I mean, that's that's
There we
the
go.
that's the
You'll
beat.
have to get
That's
me
the
hip to the
jazz.
college
Go for
football
football.
scene.
Go for football tonight. My dad's a big Gopher football fan, and I mean I've been a lifelong fan, and yeah, I'm jacked up about football in general this year. I
Yeah,
get
yeah.
bigger get bigger by the year, and
We'll get back into our
yeah,
weekly betting for the football games, and then we'll get before we know it, the NBA season will be here as well. And we'll get back into that.
for
But
sure.
man, I did want to get some
You got any
brief
you got any plans for the weekend?
Oh, no, no. For me, man, it's getting closer to that wedding day on the 15th of September. So we want to go to the beach. Like, I know my mom, my family wanted to come up and go to the beach for like the last weekend of the summer, I guess. But my girl is kind of pushing against it because we need to get some things finalized for the wedding, get some decorations still put together
For sure.
because we're doing a lot of stuff, DIY. So probably going to do a lot of preparation for that, as that is in the next 2 weeks. It's crunch time when it comes to the wedding, man. I'm a little nervous, but
Happy
excited
for you. It's
to
gonna be great.
get to it. Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. That being said, I did want to ask you very briefly here at the beginning of the show, just quick thoughts on the Noah Lyles comment. It's been circling around, obviously, him talking about how NBA teams or NBA fans kind of campaign themselves as world champions rather than NBA champions when they win the NBA championship. I'm interested on your thoughts. I know you don't care too much about this, but do you lean towards any particular side in this instance?
Yeah, I mean, I lean towards world champions. First of all, it's not a big deal. Whatever you want to say, I mean, it's all semantics. It's just wordplay.
The title.
Whatever side. Yeah, that's. I really don't give an F.
Yeah.
I mean that. Like, people are taking this way too far. First of all, this kid's detracting from all the success he's having by a silly comment here
Yes.
because he seems like he's just killing it. I don't know too much about other than I know he's won a lot of events and he's taken it away by trying to tear apart another league or another professional athlete by he's a world champion, you're not, blah blah blah. I don't really care. Just have an opinion. Don't bash anybody else on theirs because I don't think there is no wrong. I mean, it depends. Just are you a technical person or not? Like,
Right.
if you're a technical
Right.
person, sure, it comes into words, but the fact national game now, which a lot of people decide to leave out in this conversation. And on top of it, the international top teams come over and play are against usually against our shitty teams,
Right.
NBA teams, and they still get worked. So just do the science behind it, and
Yeah.
it's definitely the greatest league in the world. it's definitely the greatest players in the world. So, um, sure, maybe focus on the Olympics and FIBA being the real world champions. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But like to try to diminish
Yeah.
the NBA compared to track and field, who cares? It is what it is. But have an opinion. I'm not going to just thrash anybody else's here. That's kind of where I
Yeah.
stand.
I think that's probably the fairest way to go about it. At first I looked at this guy and I don't follow track and field, and that's my maybe that's my own fault, right, for not knowing who this guy was before this case, right? But it felt like he was bringing negative attention to himself by kind of. I looked at him as a hater, man. Like it felt like he was
Yeah,
hating on the NBA players and like the league itself, and it's like I'm a world champion, they're not. And it's like, dude, it's just not that serious, especially when you're talking about players that are at the caliber of NBA level players, the best in the world. So, yeah, I thought it was interesting all over. And then I was watching the Gilbert Arenas podcast at the gym earlier today, and I heard those guys going at it. It was like Brandon Jennings, Kenyon
yeah.
Martin, Rashad McCants, and Gilbert, like just going at it about this stuff. And they're pointing out a lot of the same stuff that you pointed out. They're just way more emphatic about the NBA being world
Right.
champions and that being the verbiage. But
It's
I
not that
fall in line with
serious.
you after kind of thinking on it for a few days now. Not that I've been like in deep thought about it, but it just kind of doesn't matter to me. I don't
Yeah.
care. Like send your team over to the NBA and come win an NBA championship and tell me, how easy that is, in regards to doing that. So I tend
You
to
know
agree
this.
with you. Yeah, I
You
do,
know the
man.
saying, "All press is good press." This is one of those instances where it's not.
Yeah.
Sure, your name, you might get your name out there more, but it's like people are always going to be remembered you as the hater, like the guy
Yeah.
that's just trying to get
Exactly.
attention for making a bold. Like, say it about baseball, sure,
Yeah.
maybe not even baseball. I don't know. Say it about anything else, but I mean,
Basketball.
basketball is like definitive, like it is the
Yes.
best league. Like, even though baseball, I'm pretty sure the MLB is the best league and all that. I don't need to go down that, but like,
Yeah, because that's not my area of expertise. I would guess that the MLB is the best in the world just
yeah,
because, once again, you have international stars coming to this league. Shohei Ohtani isn't going to play in Japan. He's coming to play in
right,
America. So, like, I don't know. I look at it in that sense. And then there's the argument from the soccer fans or the international football fans where Man City wins the treble last year and they still didn't call themselves world. Well, that's their choice. They
right,
probably are world champions. So if they decided to call themselves that, then I would be okay with that too. But
for sure.
nonetheless,
If the best league in the world, whatever you're in, cribbage. If you're the cribbage best player in the world and it's definitive, like the Premier League's the best league in the world, call yourself whatever you want. I mean,
exactly,
no
exactly, and that's
irrational
the
mind
simple
shouldn't
truth.
argue.
That's the simple truth is call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
There's no need to hate on it in an interview during the Olympics or the FIBA tournament. So it was interesting nonetheless. Let's get into these top 10 power forwards where it actually matters what we think here. I'm gonna start right at the top, Zach, and I'm gonna go with my number 10 here, and I'm gonna kind of gauge you as we go on here because I know we have a little bit of difference in opinion on Zion Williamson per se. So you're going to see where he comes in on my list here. If he is even on your list, I'll be interested to see. But number 10 for me, man, is going to be Julius Randle of the New York Knicks. When you look at him on paper, I mean, the numbers are there, right? He averages 25 points per game. Shot 34% from the three-point line last year, which not the greatest, but he shoots a lot of them, honestly. Average, 10 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game. So he's covering all the bases. The real reason that he comes in as low as 10 for me is just the playoff lows, man. The struggles in the playoffs. If he plays like half of himself from the regular season in the playoffs for the New York Knicks, I think they maybe get past the Miami Heat with as well as Jalen Brunson was playing. I'm not going to sit here and declare them beating the Heat if Randall shows up, but would have been a much more competitive series if Randall just looked more like himself from the regular season. maybe that's the way the Miami Heat are able to defend him. Maybe that's just the intensity cranking up in the playoffs, and you see the inefficiencies come out in a game like Julius Randle's. But nonetheless, he comes in at number 10 for me here, man.
So that's okay. I mean, it's probably the lowest I can accept him. Maybe you could talk me into 11, but I'd need a huge argument for that.
Yeah.
With that said, I mean, he's got to fall somewhere in between. I'd say this is crazy, but I'd say you could have him in this conversation from 4 to 11. He's got the widest range. Okay, it all
Yeah.
depends because he's a great regular season player. Okay, and
Yeah.
he has one of the biggest drop offs when it comes to playoffs. Yet his playoffs are a tad underrated, but they aren't. Okay, he's probably the worst All NBA playoff performer maybe in a long time.
Yeah.
I'd put that to the fire because what were his playoff numbers? I mean, he had
Yeah. I'm trying to pull him up now.
four games, okay, under 11 points, and then he had his highest scoring playoff game was 25, and this is in 2 series. This is 2 years in a row of not being great in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't translate to winning basketball. So when the Knicks win in the playoffs and when they're playing great, it's not like Julius has a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And so I mean, you'd really, really have to pound something home to get him up to 4.
Yeah.
But
Because I'm looking at the
like, I'm not
shooting
mad
numbers,
at
man.
your ranking here. It's just he's been so good in the regular season. He plays, he's healthy. Um, and it's just his game just changes and drops off in the
Yeah.
playoffs. It's as simple as that.
It's
So my
it's
number
really
10
the
though, this guy you could have anywhere from 10 to I don't know 14 maybe. Yeah, I'd say 10 to 14. That'd be okay. I got him at the highest that you could probably have him, and that's Paulo. Um,
okay.
yes, he came in pretty polished as a rookie, but he still put up a lot of empty stats at times. He's not necessarily a winning player. I'd put more of that on Wendell Carter Jr. and Franz for the Magic, that are those contributions. But he's very well-rounded, very polished for a rookie. Um, I gave him more of the benefit of the doubt.
Oh,
Yeah, so most of the winning in Orlando, I'd contribute to Wendell Carter Jr., Friends, and just having solid depth. Okay, they had scoring guys. Where Paulo, I give him the benefit of the doubt overall that he translate to more winning than most rookies, but that's what it's going to take for him to level up here and climb much further. I expect him to get a couple spots up next year for sure. Uh, but yeah, that's just where I have him defensively. I think he can come more aware and just better effort as well. So what do you think of that ranking for Paulo?
No, I think everything you said is fair. I think I might be a little bit higher on him. Just maybe it's my Duke bias, but no, he's actually number 9 for me. So it's right
There you go.
around the same area. But I know you said 10 through 14. So if you're taking Julius Randle over Paulo Banchero, I'm not going to sit here and like diminish that argument because Julius Randle's just been doing it longer, and he's been doing it at a more successful rate, a more productive rate, I guess you could say. So I get that argument. I'm just going with Banchero and the well-shaped play coming in as a rookie and his ceiling from that, right? And I know we're not doing projections here, but I think if I was picking a player today, I'm taking Banchero over Julius Randle.
Whew.
And that is just from a simple basketball standpoint of style of play. Now there is a beg to question, right? There's a question in mind here where does Banchero operate better as a center in the NBA? And I do wonder this watching him play in FIBA. Obviously, it's completely different, right? When you're playing with those type of players in FIBA. But it just looks like his style of play might be a little bit better suited for like that small ball center type of play. Now, with Wendell Carter in Orlando, I don't know how eager to do that they'll be. So maybe it's a question that's not even worth answering. But yeah, I liked what you said about Ben Carroll. I understand what you said. I just think this guy is going to turn into a star as soon as this season. And I think he showed great signs of that in his rookie year, obviously winning Rookie of the Year and averaging over 20 points per game. 3-point shooting needs to get better. He doesn't shoot a ton of them, but playing at that power forward spot with Wendell Carter Jr. There at the center, kind of honing down in the paint, he's going to have to get better at floor spacing for sure.
Okay, so couple things. You threw out some big bombs there, in my opinion. One, I think I can handle the 5. Throwing that into question,
Yeah,
even though I think he's going to be fine at the 4. It comes down to his feet in the NBA, 4 or 5, kind of like a cat situation. Jury's still out on that.
yeah,
Julius Randle, I mean, still a little, I don't know. I don't think he'd ever be in question for a 5, but yeah, I mean, it's a stretch. I like Powell at the 4, I think, because him and Wendell are both great passers.
yeah.
Um, I don't, but that's fine. You can have that take. That it's not
It's
a huge
bothering
deal.
you.
Yeah, I just think he can play both. I just think he's not um, just wide enough yet, big enough yet, and I think you need a little more effort to bruise around with some of those guys yet.
Yeah,
Where Cat's definitely bigger, just body wise. But the
yeah.
take that really bothers me is having him above Julius Randle right now. There's no argument for that. Even across the board, it's like, yes, I believe by the end of the year, there's I'll give him a 30% chance he's better than Julius Randle. I'm still not like, if I were to pick at the end of this year, I'll say at the end of year 3, he's for sure better than Julius Randle. Like, for the next 5 years, taking Paolo, no questions asked. Um,
But right now,
if they make the playoffs, I'm going to take Paolo in the playoffs right now.
yeah,
Uh, but I don't know if I have the Orlando Magic in the playoffs
making the
either. But
playoffs.
uh, right now, there is absolutely no argument whatsoever. It just, from any aspect. I mean, maybe now I was going to go
My argument,
defense.
Zach, my argument to you would be at least with Paulo in the playoffs, you have the unknown. With Julius Randle the last
Right.
2 years in the playoffs, we have him shooting a total of 34.4% from the field.
Right.
And
No,
this is
he's
a guy that
atrocious.
shoots a lot of shots. Now, I know the regular season matters. He played 77 games last year, and he had a better regular season than Paulo. But I'm going with the unknown factor of how Paulo's game would translate over Julius Randle. And maybe that's to a fault, but that's kind of my take here is we've seen what Julius Randle looks like in the playoffs. It is not good, right? It's not even good enough to make this list, if we're being honest. But his regular season is so good that it kind of dragged him into my top 10 for me. But I feel the animosity. I feel like I'm disrespecting Julius Randle in your eyes right now. But
Oh,
man,
absolutely.
the playoff lows are a thing in my eyes. I know that maybe it's not totally fair, but yeah, I would go with Paulo just right now even.
Okay, because but just think about this. Even like in that situation, if you put Paulo in New York, he's not putting up the numbers. They're not winning as many games. With Paulo last year, um, they'd probably make the playoffs with Paulo as a rookie, but yeah. And this just the thing. It's not projections, but
Yeah,
we'll
fair
stand
enough.
different on that. My number 9. This one's a little hot. You can get at me for this one,
I'm interested.
but Evan Mobley is my number 9,
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
and he's just polished. He's a great defender. I think he should have won Defensive Player of the Year last year. I truly believe that. To be able to win that as a second-year player, yes, there's all the concerns he's not hitting the ceiling in year 2 as um, the greatest power forward ever that some people wanted to throw him at. Like, give me a break. Like, the guy, the guy came in over, I think matched, okay, at least matched, if not
Yeah.
exceeded expectations, because he won a bunch of games as a rookie. He's in tough situations with a lot of great players that are also developing a little bit. The fit with Jared Allen isn't great. It really isn't. The small forward situation's in question yet.
Yeah.
So the fits all around aren't great. There's just a lot of talent on that team that are exceeding fits. So for him to be like an excellent, to make it a good fit and to have all this success, it's going to come down to usage if he can grow up this list, because these names get good. Um, and they're pretty, like, I don't see any of these guys falling backwards into the
Yeah.
Mobley range. So he's going to have to come up and take it from these guys. The one guy above him, I'm not saying that I have him right above him. Jaren Jackson Jr. is up here somewhere. He's the one guy I see that he could definitely take out, but Jaren can also grow.
Yeah.
But Mobley, I mean, it's coming down to his scoring, really. I think his passing's for sure going to grow, his rebounding, everything is just his scoring, the usage coming in, and figuring out that fit. Would you
Yeah.
even
No.
have him like what, top 12, 13,
No,
14?
he's number 11 for me.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's definitely right there. He's
Yeah.
a guy I contemplated heavily on the list, honestly, because the defensive prowess. I mean, he's just an excellent defensive tool, right? Like where you can put him anywhere on the court. Obviously, you want to see him come around as a scoring threat and shooting from the outside in order to space the floor. But nonetheless, from a power forward standpoint, I feel like he's covering a lot of the bases, especially defensively. And I like that you mentioned Jaren Jackson Jr. because that's kind of like the model I'm looking at that Evan Mobley could become even a better version of. He's already
Minus
got
the
the defensive
shooting, right?
prowess. Yeah, the shooting has to come around, right? I think he shoots like 29% from three right now. Doesn't shoot many at all, but that has to come around if you're going to be better than Jaren Jackson Jr. because that's one thing he can do. He can shoot the ball from the 3-point line as well as defend. But his flaw is obviously fouls, and I guess I'll just give you my number 8. It is Jaren Jackson Jr. So he is right above the number 9 here, Paulo. But nonetheless, when you look at Jaren Jackson Jr., he could be so much higher up this list given his talent if he could just stay out of foul trouble, man. And a lot of that is IQ. A lot of that is patience, knowing when to attack on the defensive end, knowing your limits on the defensive end. But you also don't want to take that aggression and that style of play away from him because it's what makes him a guy that can block, 3 shots per game last season. So love Jaren Jackson Jr.'s game. I think he can get a lot better once he gets more composed up here. So to your point of looking at guys up this list, how high could Evan Mobley get, right? There's 2 guys on this list that over the next 2 to 3 years, I would imagine are going to retire. Now it'll be a shock across the NBA when they do. But then when you look outside of those 2 as, spots that could be jumped, I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is one of those guys. Julius Randle is one of those guys. We'll see Paolo Banchero's trajectory. And then there's a few guys up this list, but I don't know if he can get to that level yet. And I don't want to give him that proclamation. But Jaren Jackson Jr., man, 18 points per game, close to 19. He's balling out in the FIBA tournament right now. And he's just your like prototypical defensive tool that you can use around the floor. It's a guy that can win you championships once he gets his mind right. So I like his game. I like the floor spacing, 35.5% from the 3-point line. Could do a little bit more at the rebounding, but he's a guy that spaces the floor at the same time. So you kind of take that for what it is. And then playing beside Steven Adams. I think he played beside Tillman a lot last year. All of your prototypical centers that are going to grab boards. That's all they're in there for. So I like Jaren Jackson Jr.'s game. I'm kind of disappointed that I can't put him up a little higher because I do think the talent is there. It's just not able to be seen because a lot of the time he's just having to sit out with foul trouble, man.
Yeah, I was really mad that he won Defensive Player of the Year when he can't even stay on the court and when it matters
It's
the
like
most.
part of being a good defensive player,
Oh,
right?
it's so important. It's like
that
how
doesn't
do you
make
ignore
sense.
that? It's gonna drive me nuts the rest of my life that he won it last year. Yes, he's a great defender overall, but yeah.
How many games did Evan Mobley play last year?
And Jaren Jackson Jr. only played 63. Evan Mobley played 79. Like, what?
Yeah, that is crazy. That is honestly
What?
crazy. That is honestly crazy.
Brother, like, drives me nuts. And it's a
That's
regular
crazy.
season
Is that
award.
league bias? Like, is that what that is? Just, Jaren Jackson Jr. being in the league longer. It's like he deserves one after.
Gets anointed, and like, here's the thing. Statistics across the board lean, like advanced wise, lean towards Evan Mobley. It's like
Yeah.
blocks per game slightly to Jaren Jackson Jr., and that's about like it. The blocks per game thing. People love one statistic like that, like, and
Yeah.
that's what
Blocks,
drives me nuts.
steals.
That, like, when you look at, I hate to bring this up, but like James Harden led the league in steals and deflections.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Is
they'll
he the
ignore
best
it for
defender in the
him.
world?
They'll ignore it for
Yeah.
him. But when Jaren Jackson Jr. does it, give this guy one of the most glorious awards ever. But anyways, I'm glad you agree on Jaren Jackson's ceiling. I think
Yeah.
he can, based on, I think his ceiling's way higher than the rest of the team. So I don't think he's got anybody necessarily interrupting it like Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
It's just, the consistency of him and his bag is all in question. How he gets his points and just the motor. I don't know if he wants to do it night in,
Yeah.
night out. So I mean, I definitely can see him getting into the 4 range, and that's where I see like
The
Mobley
cap.
maxing out right now
Yeah.
until I see more out of him too. But
Yeah.
one thing about Mobley, he went down a little bit in the playoffs, and that's, um, even on the scoring side of things. But the thing is, his percentages are still great. He just gets a little even more, skittish, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
But his rebounds, everything else is great there in the playoffs. But yeah, scoring buckets matter. So enough with Evan Mobley. My number 8. It's kind of sad for me to do this, but I think it's really fair. I think it's reasonable. You could have left him off the list, and because he only played 20 games, he's been hurt quite a bit the last 2-3 years. But Cat, I think this is a reasonable spot for him at number 8. I think it's fair based on, no projections. This is what it is right now, but
Yeah.
I'm giving him a little FIBA boost. That's what I'm doing, because he's
He is
dominating
balling out
FIBA.
for the Dominican
And no,
Republic.
and
Yeah.
that's right in front of us.
Yeah.
I do think that comes into play here a little bit. He's healthy,
FIBA
looks
boost. I
great.
like that.
Yeah, so he's my number 8. But yeah, he's another playoff decliner, even though he's better than Julius Randle in the playoffs. Um, Not by much. Not by much. Pretty bad, actually. There might be a debate, but no, I lean towards Cat in the playoffs a little bit.
Yeah. See, I think the reason I lean towards Cat over a Julius Randle, especially in the playoffs, and mind you, I have Julius Randle at number 7, so we're kind of right in line with that. I got him
Wait,
one spot ahead of where you have him.
you mean
Um,
Cat at number 7? You have Cat.
Cat at number 7. Yeah, I have
Yes.
Cat at number 7. So he's my next up, and he was your number 8. But with Cat, at least you have that shooting efficiency from the 3-point line where he can light it up. And if at worst he can be a spot up shooter on offense. But he does have the post game. I don't know, man. Cat's another interesting one. It's funny you talk about like some of the personalities of these players at the power forward spot specifically, because I look at Cat and I think, similar to an Embiid, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. You watch a ton more of KarlAnthony Towns than I do. But when I look at him, I look at Embiid, these like bigger guys, man, and they have post games, and they can take it to the post. And I'm not one of those old fashioned guys that says, get your ass in the post, you big mother stuff. Like, it's not like that. I love guys that have kind of transition with the game and have spaced the floor and have that ability to go out and find their own shot right outside of the paint. But I think when times get tough for your team and you need a bucket, you need a guy like Cat, a guy like Embiid, these bigger body guys that can work the post to go down there and get an automatic bucket, whether
Yep.
that's getting to the line or getting down there, getting a dunk, a layup, whatever the case may be. You need an easy bucket. These guys should be able to get those for you. And that's what bothers me about Cat. It's what bothers me about Embiid. I know we're not talking about centers right now. And it's something you see with Jokic, right? Jokic gets down there, and maybe Rudy Gobert ruins that for Cat. Maybe that's something that I'm not being fair to Cat about. But aside from that, I love his skill set. And I think when you're talking about the FIBA boost, you're seeing that skill set fully an example, right? Like you're seeing it fully portrayed when he gets to be the guy for that team. And to that point, you have to beg the question, what is that fit in Minnesota? Is it hindering him? Is it hindering the team? So on and so forth. Only played 29 games last year. Otherwise, maybe if he plays more, he plays better as well. Maybe he gets higher up this list. And I think if you go maybe a season or two back, he probably is a lot higher on this list. But comes in at number 7 for me right now, given last year. And just trying to be fair to him, honestly. I'm trying to be fair with the fit, with the injury, all of that included here.
I love that you still have him above Jaren Jackson Jr. and Julius, but I can't do it. I mean, they play in the playoff.
Is it the defense or what is it?
Defense, just it's games played, simple as that.
Games
I mean,
played.
Yes, when he's been healthy and he plays games, he's definitely better than those guys. Absolutely. And Cat's been a center up until Rudy Gobert came, and then that was also a part of his decline last year when he did play. The Ant ascension and Rudy Gobert coming in, but KarlAnthony Towns can have good footwork. He can have good post moves, but he's not consistent. It's a lot of mental stability, and he's got mental instability. He's one of the biggest mental midgets in the league. He's dominating bad players right now, and that's a part of it. So maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to think who he'd run into that would give him a challenge as a big. We'll save that for another day. But
maybe a Vucevic, Valanciunas.
Cat's skill set, as long as he's got a defensive 4 or 5 next to him, can play both positions, can fit in most teams. If he becomes a better decision maker, I think him and Gobert can work out decently. I still haven't given up on that to 100%, but I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I think it's going to hurt Cat going forward because I don't think he has the mental stability to work through it and to figure it out. So I just think he's going to have a tough time even climbing this list. But he should be able to be somewhere into this 8 to 4 range for a long time, just because he's such a good shooter. He is an all-time shooter, and he fits with so many people.
Do you think last year was his worst season?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Since his rookie year, probably was better than his rookie year for sure. Anyways, number 7, I had Julius Randle, and that's for all the stuff we mentioned already. We already talked about Julius Randle. So number 6, Jaren Jackson Jr. for me.
Okay. Gotcha. So we are on my number 6 now. And this is where one of my personal favorites comes in. This is where Zion is coming in. Zach, I'll be honest, man. You told me be reasonable before we came into this show. And that kind of weighed into my thoughts because I was working through my emotions here. And you shouldn't operate with emotions when doing these rankings. But I had this man up as high as 3. And I was like, man, let me not go on my show and look like a clown today. So I did end up dropping him all the way to 6. Excuse me. Yes, 6. Ultimately, the reasoning it comes in games played versus talent. This is where the talent exceeds my games played requirement. When you're talking about Zion Williamson on the court, his impact. You saw the Pelicans to start the season last year when he played his 29 games that he played last year. They were in the tops of the Western Conference. I believe they were actually sitting at the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. But as we discuss all the time on this show, it is going to come down to him staying on the court. If he can stay on the court, he can enter into the top 3 or 4 on this list, potentially even number 1 once these 2 other guys, right? That, not number 1. I'm not going to say number 1. He could get to number 2 if these two other guys that are ahead of him end up retiring anytime soon. But nonetheless, this is where Zion comes in for me at number 6. I tried to take as much bias out as I could.
That's fair. Yeah, I definitely disagree with it because of based on the facts, kind of like the Powell thing, but it is what it is. I wasn't going to talk you out of this one. You and your Duke guys, I'll give you
Is
the
he off
pass.
your list though? Where would he
Uh,
come in on your list? Like
I
top
mean,
15?
basically for his year last year, only playing 29 games. That's why I said I'm okay if you
Kind
had
of
cap much
disqualified?
lower. Yeah, I mean, I have essentially number 11.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
would I rather have Aaron Gordon's last year? If you switch Zion and Aaron Gordon, the Nuggets don't win last year. They probably don't
Yeah.
win. Maybe they could win
Yeah.
without Aaron Gordon because you wouldn't have had Zion in the playoffs.
Aaron
So
Gordon was an honorable mention for me. I will say
yeah,
that
so
in
I
that
mean, you could
10 to
have
15
Zion. I
range.
mean, at the lowest, I'd say like the 14 Jeremy Grant range. That's the only guy you could maybe say is more valuable than the last 2 years of Zion. But no, I think 11, 12-ish for Zion is fair. But yeah, I mean, at his peak, he's been number 4 on this list and a top 10 to 13 player in the NBA. The one great year he did have, and he
Yeah.
did play good in the playoffs. He was a good playoff performer when he did play. So my number 5, we had Jaren Jackson Jr. at 6. My number
Yeah.
5, these next two might shock you a little bit, but I'm
I'm
thinking
interested.
the way your list is panning out, I think we're going to be close. I have Lauri Markkanen at 5.
Yeah, that's
All
exactly where
right.
I have Lauri. And I honestly think we'll see how the list goes. I do think our top 4 will probably be very similar, if not the exact same. But I do have Lauri Markkanen at number 5 as well, right ahead of Zion, top 5 power forward.
So he averaged 26, 9, and 2 off 50, 39,
Mm,
88 splits. Efficiency is incredible. Almost
yeah,
50, 40, 90 club. I think he'll get there and as this team gets better. I think next year he could be 50, 40, 90. He has a great shot at that. For him, it's passing and playmaking. Like
yeah,
that's if I don't know if he'll ever get above 5 here. Like and because of the injuries in Cat and Zion, so he kind of might have peaked last year in his rankings, but he'll
yeah,
get better as a player and could go down in rankings. That's fine. But it comes down to passing, playmaking for him, and defense. Which defense I
yeah,
don't think he'll ever get much better at, but he
yeah.
can definitely get better at passing and playmaking, especially just with the growth of his teammates.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with everything you said there about Laurie. I thought he really showed his stuff as the guy in Utah last year. Had the Utah Jazz in contention for the playoffs with no business being in contention,
Yeah,
right? Now, when I say contention, they're the 12 seed in the Western Conference, but for a long time they were in contention around that 8, 7, 8, 9, 10. It was so close in the West for a long time. And he was keeping them afloat. And I just like what he did as the main guy there last year. His skill set is built for today's NBA, spacing the floor. The ability to shoot the ball at his height is just kind of ridiculous. But as you mentioned, got to stay healthy. Played 66 games last year. That's solid. You want to see a little bit more there. But I do like what Laurie's doing. I tend to agree with you, though, ceiling wise. Once again, you have these two guys ahead of him that we'll see how much longer they're here and how much how much better Laurie gets in that time frame. But it does feel like 5 is kind of the ceiling here for him. Maybe just maybe gets to 4, but that defensive prowess has to come into effect at some point. If he becomes a better playmaker, get up to around 5 assists, 4 or 5 assists as the main guy on that team. See him try to operate like the guy that is right ahead of him on this list for me, right? I could see him kind of transitioning into that type of role. And we'll discuss it now. Number 4 for me is going to be Pascal Siakam. Love his playmaking ability. As being the number 1 guy for the Toronto Raptors, the offense revolves around him. Obviously, averages around 25 points per game. But what separates him from Laurie for me is one, the defensive prowess. He's a little bit better of a defender. but also the playmaking ability. That's where Lauri can kind of get ahead, right? That's
Yep.
where he can elevate his game and maybe get to number 4 on this list. But as you mentioned, Cat, Zion, a couple of these guys below him are set to become a lot better as well and take jumps. But no, I love Lauri's game. I love Pascal Siakam's game. He's a guy that gets on my goddamn nerves given the playoff challenges that the Sixers have had against him. But he also has an NBA championship, right? He wasn't the main guy on that team, but he played a significant role in that championship run. And since then, he has become the main guy now. Hasn't equated to a lot of success for the Raptors, given, but nonetheless, he still is a very productive player.
Yeah, so you said it perfectly. Like Siakam, I'm the biggest Siakam blowhard you'll see. I've been this way since, I don't know, right before he peaked. Second year in the league, I'll say, is
Yeah.
when I've been the leader, the president of the Siakam fan club, and I haven't left. And I mean, I take him over a lot of guys that people wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I just think he's such an all-around great player. Um, I mean, he's been as high as a top 10 to 15 player for me.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. And
Last year when they played the Sixers in the playoffs in the first round, like that season, I
yep.
think you could have argued him as a top
Oh, he
10 player.
was. Yes.
Yeah.
No, last year, absolutely. And to be the second best player on a championship team, arguably,
Yeah.
on a playoff run, he was so good. With that said, I don't know if he can ever climb up this list anymore. I
Yeah.
don't see his game getting much better than this. I think we're seeing Pascal at his peak. Sure, shooting wise, yes. But like you mentioned earlier, the reason why Siakam's above Lauri right now is because he's more polished. He
Yeah.
is a way better passer, playmaker, and defender. Those are the 3 areas Lauri needs to get better at.
Yeah.
But Lauri's a much better shooter than him, but still not enough to overshadow Siakam because he's got to do it consistently to climb this list, in my opinion,
Yeah.
and to perform in the playoffs where Siakam has and proven it on the highest level. So
Agreed.
Siakam, I don't I don't see him ever putting up bigger stats than he is either. So last
Yeah.
thing I want to mention on Lauri, his
Yeah.
last 12 games, he averaged 29, 9
Mm.
rebounds, 2 assists, almost a steal, and then he shot 45, 32% from 3 and 87 from the free throw line. Like that's savage material coming
Absolutely.
down the stretch when it matters, and they held him out. Once they were eliminated, they held him out, but he's still putting up those type of numbers.
So
So
that
Lauri,
affects the games played too. Yeah. Good
yeah,
point.
like
Good
Lauri can
point.
still go as a scorer, but I think the Jazz got better as a team, and that's gonna play a factor in Lauri's growth for sure. So um, I'd be hard pressed to say he's gonna get much better either. So number 3, this is where it gets interesting and
Yeah.
pretty fun, but number 3, I have LeBron. Actually, sorry. Hold that note.
You
Hold it.
change it?
I'm changing. Yep, it's KD at 3.
Interesting.
KD at
I went
3.
with LeBron at 3,
KD
just
at
for the
3. No
frequency.
argument. Playoffs down. LeBron was in the playoffs. Yeah, can't do that to LeBron. KD's 3.
Fair enough. That is
KD
fair,
sucked in
especially
the
off
playoffs.
last year.
KD sucked in the playoffs.
Yeah,
There's
that
no
is
debate.
fair. You know what it is for me, and maybe I'm wrong for feeling this way, but
I mean,
maybe I'm punishing LeBron by seeing him later in the playoffs. Maybe that's what it is because my argument coming into today and coming into this rating, right? Why is KD above LeBron, right? Because precursor, it goes LeBron at 3, KD at 2, Giannis obviously at number 1 here. But when you look at it, KD versus LeBron, my thought process was I watched LeBron tire out in the playoffs. I don't think LeBron can be the main guy on a championship team anymore. I think you need AD to be that guy,
agreed.
right?
Yep.
That's how I was looking at it. But when you look at KD, why was I under the impression that KD can be the main guy
He
on a
never, he
playoff?
never,
Why do I feel that
never
way?
has proven it. He can't do it as a one singular. He's got to be 1B or 1A. And like even Harden
He's
was
a
so
1B with
important in
Devin Booker.
Brooklyn. Like, you could argue Harden was better than him in Brooklyn that year. They were
Yeah.
doing great. But I'd lean
That's a
toward
good
KD.
point, man.
No,
I'm gonna move down to 3 because
his max
I
at
don't
a
know what
number
it
one,
is.
what people don't talk about, his max at a number one, clear number one, has been the conference final. So basically, James Harden, like career
Yeah,
wise, KD minus the rings and James Harden are identical players in my estimation. Outside of KD's peak defense is better. Harden's a way better passer, playmaker, but the results proven it. I mean, I definitely think Harden wins those rings if you change KD and Harden out in Golden State. Many
yeah,
stars would have won those
yeah,
rings.
yeah.
Let's be
Literally,
honest.
literally.
Let's be honest. I'm not talking just
That's so
Harden.
interesting, man. That's so
So,
interesting. I think that I'm thinking through it here. Like, why am I under this
right.
impression that KD can be a number one on a team and lead them to a championship? Like, why is that in my head? Like, I'm almost think
Because
it's
he's
like a
good.
preference of like style of play as they age.
Oh,
Like, I
great
think
preference.
KD's age and like as he ages, his game is going to age more gracefully than LeBron, but LeBron just does more and he plays more, right?
Yeah.
Like,
The thing with
got
KD is
my wheels turning, man.
he fits on every team ever.
Yeah,
LeBron doesn't. But he exceeds the fit. So
yeah,
LeBron does, just like Harden exceeds the fit type of thing.
yeah,
Steph Curry exceeds the fit. But like KD literally fits perfectly with any team ever. So
yeah,
the fit's way better. Yes, that's a preference type of thing, and I understand that. But literally, KD played 47 games last year, and the year before, no, year before 55, and the year before 35. Like, come
yeah,
on, man. Like
yeah,
LeBron's actually hasn't played a ton, but he's played more than KD. That
yeah,
matters too when you're this
yeah.
close, especially.
No, the playoffs is the separator for them, especially coming into like leaving last
Yeah.
season. That is the
And
separator.
KD's
So
normally great in the playoffs. Normally fantastic. Last year he was not.
yeah,
Um,
is that age? Is that
he was a
chemistry with the
shocker. Yeah.
Suns? What
Went
is it?
cold. Yeah.
That's interesting, man. You swayed me on that one. I
Cool.
am gonna go with LeBron at number 2, KD at number 3, Giannis at number 1. Tell me why you have Giannis at number 1.
No debate. I mean, there's a debate for him. He was the best
Best
player
player in
in
the
the
world,
league
right?
till last year. Jokic took that over because he was so great in the playoffs, and
Yeah,
Giannis just got injured. I mean, that's a part of
yeah,
it. So you got to give players their due, just like I gave Laurie, Mobley, deducted Cat this year. It's just given their props when they earn them. Everything's
yeah,
earned, in my opinion, and Giannis, I mean, it's his crown here until it's not. But um, it's going to be interesting this year because uh, he really, 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 really wants to win.
yeah,
And
yeah,
his team, I mean, getting a little agey, getting a little injury
yeah.
prone. Drew, I mean, they had their run, and
I was gonna
the
ask
league's
you that.
getting better and better. So it's gonna, as our previews come out and we talk more in depth there, we'll save it at that. But Giannis is
Yeah.
definitely eyes on him because I could see him bolting really soon.
I was actually gonna ask you that. Like we agree on the number 1 here. We both agree it's Giannis, top power forward in the NBA and in the world, obviously. If we want to go world champion, right? Best power forward in the world, because he is the best power forward in the NBA. No, I'm kidding there. But when you look at Giannis, like obviously you think you could see him on a different team in the very short future. What team would you look at there? Like, does he look like a New York Knick to you? Like, I don't know. Like New York Knicks, they're kind of changing of the guard right now. Like, is it the Knicks? What team could you see Giannis really going to? Where would he fit really well in your eyes?
So before last year happened, I literally thought Giannis had a chance to get into that like top five, top three all time debate.
Yeah,
He's got to win another one soon, but last year really derailed that for me. So now he's like trying to get in that top 10, top 12 ish, as he's a top 20 guy ever right now.
yeah,
So like he's got the goods. It's just he's got to have the clutch performances down the stretch. Got to make players around him better. Um,
do you look at him as a guy that would fit on any team?
Oh, he exceeds the fit, like LeBron.
Exceeds the fit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he definitely needs more perfect fits, like LeBron does. like he needed the Bosch and he needed the Kyrie Irving
Yeah.
and Anthony Davis, which those guys were the perfect fits. But yeah, I mean, they'll exceed the fits like he did with Wade.
Yeah. Fair.
But at the same time, it makes it a lot harder. It makes it a
Yeah.
lot harder. He need Giannis needs somebody who's clutch. He needs somebody who can shoot the ball. He needs
Yeah.
that to space the court, or else you can double him and whatnot. Um, it's going to be interesting. Not, I think he's like a Miami guy. I think he's a
Yeah.
Lakers guy. I
Heat
mean,
culture.
he's a big time uh, city guy, but at the same time, because we just partnered with LA Golf Club. That was special. Like that club is so pristine. He's making moves out here. That dude's trying to,
Who's the soccer club that he owns a part of? Is
I don't
that
know,
Tennessee?
Burnley or something. I don't know. I think it's Burnley, but it's Tottenham maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, he
Uh,
owns a piece of some
yeah, no,
major
he's
football
making
club.
massive business moves. He really wants to win, though. I think he'd really focus on which
Best
team, the
opportunity.
best opportunity
Yeah.
team-wise in a major
Maybe
city.
Luca down in Dallas, man.
I don't think Dallas is big enough.
Yeah.
I really don't. That would
Has to be one of the major
take a
markets.
lot. I mean, if he was smart, they would they would
Giannis and Luca,
run
that's
shit.
perfect.
They would absolutely run shit and just put shooters all around those guys.
Yeah, I
Um,
like that, man.
that should be good. We'll get more in depth with it down the road here.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll get into Milwaukee and kind of their future, their outlook once we get into the team previews in the upcoming episodes. But that's going to be it for the top 10 power forwards. This episode, hey, we disagreed on a lot more. I think that's makes for better content nonetheless. Next week we'll get into top 10 centers that will round out our positional rankings. And then we'll head to the more team-oriented conversations and start to discuss their futures. But that's going to be it for this episode, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. Have a great rest of your day there. Be sure to give my man Zak Noble a follow at Zak Noble. You can find myself at Scotty Drown. And of course, this show is brought to you by DSM Media. You can find DSM Media at DSM_media. That is it for this episode. Peace, everybody. Have a good one.